We'll have a seat on our mats and just kind of get aligned and tuned in and all that good stuff. So as you settle in to your seated posture, I want you to kind of take a moment and lengthen up through the crown of the head, relax your shoulders down, and then I want you to kind of feel your way into good spinal alignment. So our core muscles really help keep us aligned, and we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention on our core today, which is more than just the abdomen. You have two sets of abdominal muscles. You have rectus abdominis that runs from your sternum to your pubic bone, and you have transversus abdominis that runs across the lower abdomen. But we also have the sides of the waist, which are internal and external obliques. Those are kind of diagonal muscles. And then all the muscles that make up the low back. There are a ton of them. But the main point is that it's all the way around our midsection. And so we're going to be focusing on that. And I want you to kind of feel how that aids your alignment. So if you were to start to lean too far forward, your low back muscles will tighten to keep you from toppling over. And if you start to lean too far back, abdomen tightens to keep you from falling backwards. And the same is true if you lean too far to one side or the other. The opposite side will tighten to keep you aligned. So when we have all of those muscles beautifully engaged, we're able to just be in a nice aligned position. And so I want you to just really feel your way into that, bringing awareness to your midsection all the way around, and then making sure that it feels like your head is balanced on top of that. Take a deep breath in through your nose, and a big exhale through the mouth. And now feeling that beautifully aligned spine. Just check in with every other part of your body. Let's start breathing a little slower and deeper. So if you're comfortable doing an ujjayi breath, that would be great. And if not, just slow your breathing down. And then notice any thought patterns or emotions. Notice what your energy is like right now. And then let's set our intention for our practice, bringing palms together in front of the heart. We just take a moment and decide what would be most beneficial for each of us to receive from our practice today. And then take one more extra deep breath in. Exhale through the mouth. Good. So before we transition into some of our practice, I'm going to have you do Uddiyana Bandha, which is, you can think of it as a breath, but technically it's a lock. Uddiyana stands for or translates to flying up, and Bandha means lock. So this is where you get all of the air out of your lungs. You keep it out for just a second or two, lift the rib cage, which creates a vacuum here, and the internal organs move. So it's a slight upward shift of everything. You'll feel like your belly gets really concave. You only hold your breath out for a second or two, but you do have to hold it out. So if you breathe all of your air out and then as you're trying to lift, it does not work. I know when I teach in-person classes, I often hear that sharp intake of breath, but you mustn't breathe back in for just a second or two. So what'll happen is you'll breathe in through your nose, you're gonna breathe out through your mouth. However you're seated is great. It doesn't matter. If you're cross-legged, you can push against your thighs. If you're seated with your legs tucked underneath, you can push against your thighs. If your legs are straight out in front of you, you can push against your thighs. But the bottom line is, once you are completely empty of air, completely empty, you will push against your thighs to lift your chest. Your belly will sink in as everything moves up, and then you're just going to relax and breathe in again. It's really that fast, no more than 1 or 2 seconds. So without further ado, let's try that. Take an inhale through the nose. Breathe all of your air out. I like to do it through the mouth. Once you are 100% empty, don't breathe back in. Lift your chest. And then relax and breathe back in. We're going to do that 2 more times. You do it at your own speed. And then relax and just let your breath be normal. If you were able to get that, you would have felt a really, really strong sensation of contraction in the abdomen. And if you didn't get it, it's okay. It takes a lot of practice. It can be kind of challenging. But let's move from that now into downward facing dog. And by the way, if you got warm when you did that, it's a good indication that you actually did it and it worked. Because a lot of times that will cause you to actually feel a little bit warm. So let's go ahead and move into down dog. Pedal the feet a little if that feels good to you. And then we're just going to really lengthen the spine, press the hips back. And slowly, slowly walk your feet forward, keeping your knees bent, relaxing the neck, just hanging for a couple of breaths here in ragdoll. And then on your next inhale, reach the arms up and overhead, stretch up. And as you exhale, bring your palms together in front of your heart. So I want you to inhale, reach the arms up, interlace your fingers and extend your index fingers straight out. Be really mindful here of having the rib cage lifted for length and slightly tucking your tailbone under. It's a slight tilt of the pelvis to the back because I want you to just slightly arch back. And this is different for everyone. Some of you may be arching quite far back. Some of you may be barely perceptibly reaching back, but I don't want you to feel any compression in the low back. So you keep your pubic bone pushing forward and the ribcage lifting towards the ceiling. We're going to take 2 more breaths here. What's happening is your abdomen is stretching and your low back is contracting. So you've got 2 activations going on in the core. Come back up until you're completely vertical. And then you're going to lean to your right. And so you have, again, dual action here in the core. The right side of your torso is tightly contracted. The left side feels like it's stretching and lengthening, but honestly, it is also contracted to keep you from falling over. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, lean to your left. And so the same thing is happening here. So on the right side of your torso, where you're feeling that stretch, those muscles are actually also trying to tighten to hold you in place. And that's the definition of flexibility when a muscle is strong in a lengthened position. Come back up. And as you exhale, unlace the fingers and fold forward into a standing forward bend. Just pause here for a couple of breaths. And then on your next inhale, look up and lengthen and back down. We're going to step back with the left leg. Just hold your lunge for a moment. Drop your left knee down, fully extend the right leg to stretch out your hamstring. We're not going to neglect our other body parts because, quite honestly, whatever's going on at your core has a direct effect on everything else in your body. So many actions that we take for granted wouldn't even be possible without some core strength. Let's go ahead and bend the right knee. Reach the arms up and overhead. Tilt your pelvis back, lift the rib cage, let your hips move forward. So we're just finding that sensation on the front of the left hip. And then on your next exhale, if you can, just rotate to the right. Arms are out to the side like a T. Palms are facing forward. And so in this position, those oblique muscles at the sides of the waist are what's helping you initiate the twist. From here, we're going to bring our hands down to the mat. Take the right knee back to meet the left knee. You can wag your tail a moment if you like. Go ahead and take a child's pose. And then from your child's pose, we're going to do something a little different. And I want you to be mindful of your body, particularly if you do have back issues or something. We're going to be moving into a forearm plank. So I'm doing that so that anybody that's got wrist issues doesn't have a problem with it. But what I'd like you to do is get your forearms onto the mat. Your elbows should be the same distance as your shoulders. Now, if you do have back problems, you'll just back your knees up a little bit and get your body in a straight line. If you can, though, I would prefer that you turn your toes under and take the knees off the ground. Try and keep your body in a perfectly straight line. So if somebody took a horizontal line, it would go through your shoulders, your hips, and your heels. And now you can lower all the way down, slide your arms a little farther forward, bring the big toes to touch, the heels to drop open, and you are in Sphinx. So in that forearm plank, your entire core was engaged, which means it should also be awake now, which is a good thing because we'll probably do that a couple more times. I'm just warning you. And then bring your hands back a little bit and press into downward facing dog. And in this down dog, really concentrate on lengthening your spine. Press through your palms, reach the hips back. And then take a big step forward with your left foot. Hold your lunge for a couple of breaths. And let the right knee drop down. Extend your left leg. You can just kind of rock your hips back, flex the ankle and toes. And then from here, we'll bend the left knee, reach the arms overhead, tilt the pelvis back, keep the rib cage lifted, allow the hips to move forward to find that stretch on the front of the right hip. And then on your next exhale, if it feels okay, rotate open to the left. Arms are out like a T. Bring your hands back down to the mat. Step forward to your standing forward bend. Inhale and reach the arms all the way up and overhead. And as you exhale, bring your palms together in front of your heart. So from here, I'm going to actually have you get onto your backs. I don't want you to get too excited because I'm going to ask you to get back up again. We're going to do some abdominal work before we do anything else. And I think you'll notice how it has an effect on some of the poses that will follow. So we really want to activate these muscles. So lie on your back. Your knees are going to stay bent, but you're going to take your feet off the floor. And then once your feet are off the floor, I want you to make sure that your thighs are vertical. So what your body wants to do is pull the knees really close in so that your back is flat. I want you to keep your knees directly over your hips. There should be a small arch in your back right now. We're going to take that out using abdominal muscles. So interlace your fingers behind your neck. And please make sure it's your neck and not your head because we don't want to yank on the head. We just want to support the neck. Your elbows can point up towards the ceiling. Now we're going to take a deep breath in. We're going to hold our breath for a moment and press the low back into the mat without pulling the knees towards us. Then exhale, lifting shoulder blades up off the mat like we're reaching our elbows for our thighs, emptying the lungs completely, and then inhale down. Hold the breath, flatten the back, exhale, crunch, elbows towards thighs, breathe out completely, don't let your knees sneak forward, inhale down, hold the breath, flatten the back, exhale, and crunch. Inhale down, hold your breath. Flatten your back, exhale, elbows towards thighs. You should be feeling your abdomen about now. There's only one more left. Inhale down, hold the breath, flatten the back, exhale, crunch, elbows towards thighs, and release. Hug your knees in. You may rock side to side. And then either roll over onto your side to press into a down dog, or you can just rock yourself forward and step back. Downward facing dog. Press the tailbone up and back and stretch. From this downward facing dog, I would like for you, if your wrist can handle it, to just shift into plank for a moment. And then shift back into downward facing dog. Shift into plank. Shift to the downward facing dog. One more time. Shift into plank. And then shift into downward facing dog. You're going to take a step forward with your right foot, spin the left heel flat, and come up into warrior two. Once you get your warrior two, what I'd like you to do is straighten your right leg. Kind of kick your hips to the left, lengthen your rib cage to the right. Find your triangle today, paying attention to alignment and really paying attention to equal length on both sides of the spine. Now, once you get your body into the position that feels right for your triangle, I want you to keep your torso exactly like it is. And if you're able, your right hand, the one that's somewhere on your right leg or foot or block, is going to leave the leg and extend out parallel to the ground just for a breath. And then come back up and bend your right knee, warrior two. Left hand to the left thigh, reverse your warrior. That right arm reaches up and over. Come back up into your warrior two, and then take your hands to the mat and step straight to downward facing dog. Step your left foot forward, right foot flat, warrior two. Once you find your warrior two, straighten your left leg. Kick the right hip to the right, lengthen your rib cage to the left. Find wherever your best triangle is for today. And once you find it, keep your torso exactly as it is and take your left arm parallel to the floor. So we're trying to really use the core here. Go ahead and come back up now. Bend your left knee, warrior two. Right hand on the right thigh. Left arm up and over to reverse your warrior. Come back up. And we'll take the hands to the mat and move back into a downward facing dog. Stretch. So from here, drop to your knees. And we're going to do another forearm plank. So again, if you need to keep the knees down, then you simply either walk your elbows forward or your legs back and try and get your body in a straight line. If you can, stay on the forearms and step back onto your toes. Just holding your forearm plank for a couple of breaths. And then drop the knees. Now, here's what we're gonna do. I want you to take your left forearm and make it parallel to the front side of your mat. You're gonna go ahead and step your legs back and see if you can get your body in a very straight line on your mat with your legs stacked and your feet flexed. My left hip is on the ground, all right? So I'm in a really straight line here, but you'll notice that my feet are stacked. So we're gonna do a side plank, and the idea is we're gonna try and keep the feet stacked. Now, if your body can't do this, you can bend the knees. You still wanna be in a straight line, and you'll lift the hips with the knees on the ground. But if you feel like you can, I want you to try and keep your feet stacked. You're welcome to use your right hand on the ground initially, but then you have to take it up. So do your best, knees or feet, but feet should be stacked. Lift your left hip and take your right hand towards the ceiling. If you can, breathe. And then bring the left hip down. We're just gonna roll over and do the same thing on the right side. And so part of what we're trying to do here is really activate the core by keeping the feet stacked. It's a different ball game if you put your other foot in front, like if you make it a T stand with your feet, don't do that. So you need to bend the knees and just lift the hips with the knees on the ground. Otherwise, up you go. Right hip lifts off the ground, feet are flexed and stacked. You're gonna breathe. And come back down. All right, it's gonna get a tiny bit more interesting. The good news is you'll get to unwind all of this when you're done. So we're still on our forearms, and you're gonna come back into a forearm plank if you can, and that includes doing it from the knees if you need to. Now, even if your knees are down, you'll lift your knees and push your tailbone up and back like a dolphin. And then just shift forward again into a forearm plank. Lift the hips up and back like you do for dolphin. Shift forward into a forearm plank. One more time, hips up and back, dolphin. And then you may drop your knees and take a child's pose. From your child's pose, scoot forward and come into a traditional Sphinx, which should be a little bit of a relief to you now. Lengthening your back, big toes touching, heels separating so that your glutes are soft. Lengthen out. And then downward facing dog. Slowly walk your feet forward. Big inhale, arms come up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Good. All right, so one of the reasons that core strength is so important, aside from alignment, is balance. So functional balance is moving balance, and we're going to practice that today. I'm going to give you some movement patterns while you're standing on one leg. Your core should be really awake now. And so what we're going to do is make sure our core is engaged to help us stay on one leg. If you're having a particularly wobbly day, you might want to be next to something just in case. But I'm pretty sure you guys can all do this because actually moving balance is slightly easier than stationary. So spread the toes of your left foot and plant the heel really nicely. We're going to stand on our left foot first. You may do whatever you want to with your arms. They can be out to the side, overhead, flailing about wildly. But I want you to raise your right knee up. And then we're going to make big circles with the right knee. Whatever direction you're going, go the other way. And then if you can, extend your right leg. You're gonna wanna flex the foot because I want you to swing it front to back. And then across in front of you, side to side. If you are still with me, I want you to put your right foot somewhere on your left leg, just like you would for tree pose. Arms are out to the side or wherever you would like them. I want you to actually make your torso lean to the left a little bit. That could be challenging. And come back up and see if you can get your torso to lean to the right. And come back up and then put your right foot down. So what that does is trains your body to right itself in any plane of movement. Let's do the other side. And you'll notice how important it is for your core to be strong for these things to happen. So spread the toes of your right foot, plant the right heel. Do whatever you want to do with your arms. Left knee comes up bent. We draw those big circles in the air with our left knee. And then we go the other way. And then go ahead and extend your left leg, flex the foot, swing it front to back. And then swing it across in front of you. And then go ahead and put that left foot somewhere on your right leg. And then whatever you want to do with your arms is fine. We're going to try and get the torso to lean a little bit to the right. By the way, if you're wobbly, that's kind of a good thing. It's your body figuring out how to right itself. It also means your core is really engaged. If you can, come on up and lean a little bit to the left. And then come on up and put your left foot back down. Ta-da! If it felt awkward, that's okay. It's a good way to get everything to learn how to balance when we're moving. In other words, it should help keep us from falling. So let's bring feet together, palms together. Take a big inhale, reach the arms up and stretch. Exhale, fold all the way forward. Look up halfway and lengthen. And then back down. I'd like you to step straight back to downward facing dog. And then drop to your knees for a moment. So all levels class. Depending upon your body, meaning depending upon your wrists and depending upon your core strength, we've already done a side plank from the forearms. And if that's what you need to do because your wrists or your core can't handle anything else, then that's what I'm going to have you do, is you're going to do your side plank from your forearm, right? For those of you that can work a little deeper or want to work a little deeper, we'll do the next side plank from our hand, but everything else is going to be the same. So if you need to do this from your forearm, please do. If you're doing a forearm side plank, get yourself into position with your left forearm across the front of the mat. We'll be taking the right hand to the ceiling. For those of you that want to attempt it from your hands, go into your downward facing dog. All right, all of us basically are going into side plank now. If you can, you're going to stack your right foot on top of your left and take your right hand towards the ceiling. Whether you're on your forearm or your hand, don't worry about it. Keep your core engaged. If you feel like you can, raise your right leg. And then we'll bring the right foot and the right hand back down. If you're in a forearm plank, drop to your knees and switch. The right forearm goes across the front of the mat. If you were in a traditional side plank, you're back to down dog. So now we're all primed to go the other way. You're going to roll onto the outside edge of the right foot if you're in down dog. If your right forearm is on the mat, you're just going to stack your feet and find your side plank with your left hand towards the ceiling. And then if you can, you're going to raise your left leg. Everybody bring it down and take a child's pose. Much deserved. Scoot forward into Sphinx. Lengthen out. And then downward facing dog. Now, from your downward facing dog, you can do this from your forearms if you need to. So for those of you that have wrist issues, just drop down to your forearms. For those of you who feel like you can, what we're going to do is shift into a plank, kind of. You can be at a little bit of an angle if you need to. But I'm going to have you bend your knees, but just don't quite put them on the floor. So they're hovering about an inch above the floor. This is called a quad plank. And for those of you with wrist issues, you can push your bum back if you'd rather do it from your hands. If you don't have wrist issues, you're welcome to be with your shoulders over your wrists. So we're here for 3 more breaths if you can. And then downward facing dog again. Stretch it back, lengthen. Walk your feet forward, standing forward bent. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Your last challenge that involves core strength and balance is the traditional pose half moon. Your obliques are very turned on and active from all your side planks and your planks. So you're welcome to use a block in a hand. You're welcome to be against a wall if you need to. But we're going to start on our left foot today. And the idea is this. You're going to start to hinge at your left hip. Pardon me. If your right leg can, it starts to lift. Your left hand will come down to the floor or to a block. The right leg continues to lift. And then much like your side plank, you're going to roll your chest open and take your right hand up towards the ceiling. Make sure your core stays engaged and you should be just fine. And then go ahead and bring all of that back down to earth. Come back up to standing. And we'll go for the other side. So you're standing on your left foot. Your right foot. You're going to hinge at your right hip. Start lifting the left foot. Take the right hand to the ground if you can. Extend that left leg out behind you. Start to roll your chest open, taking left hand towards the ceiling. Keep that core engaged. And then bring it all back down to earth and come back up to standing. Back at the front of the mat, feet together, palms together. Take a big inhale, reach the arms up and stretch. And as you exhale, fold all the way forward. Inhale, look up halfway. Exhale, back down. Step back onto your hands and knees. And in case you thought you were going to get cheated out of your cat-cows, you're not. They come in here. Arch the back as you inhale, round the back as you exhale. And then take one last child's pose, allowing low back to lengthen. Just breathe into your low back. Take one final Sphinx. Again, lengthening out through the spine. And your final downward facing dog, and I want you to focus on really pressing the hips back. So we're going for maximum spinal length here. And then from here, you may walk your feet forward, have a seat, and come into a cross-legged position if you can. And if you need to have your legs extended, that's fine. Now you get to do the gentler, yummier stuff. So now we're going to do supported side bends. You did them standing and the muscles were working really hard. Now they get to stretch without the workload. So go ahead and put your right hand on the ground. Slide it out as far as you can get it without letting the left hip lift. Keep that hip really grounded. Relax your neck to the right. Reach your left arm up and overhead. And really reach until you feel that left side stretch. And then if you want to go deeper, you can bend your right elbow a little. Now you should feel a huge stretch, but those muscles are literally just stretching because they're not having to hold you up. That's what your right hand is doing. Take a couple of deep breaths. Now this left arm that's up in the air, I want you to bring it all the way up and around behind you. Twisting to your left, right hand comes to the left knee, spine is straight, and you're twisting to look over your left shoulder. You can just kind of let that left hand slide out to your left. And then keep going laterally until you can't go any farther. Make sure that your right hip stays very grounded and flat on the mat. Relax your neck and reach the right arm up and over. Get a good stretch. If you want more, you can bend the left elbow slightly. And then you're going to come up and take that right arm that was in the air all the way around behind you. Left hand on the right knee, lift the chest and twist. Come back to the center. Bring the soles of your feet together. Slide them out in front of you, keeping the soles of the feet touching. You want to have the feet pretty far out in front of you. And then if you can, clasp your ankles and just kind of start to nestle the rib cage down between the thighs. Your body will naturally either arch or round here. Usually one is better than the other, and it's different for each of us. So you do what's best for you, but know that either one is fine. You should feel this gently in the low back, but nothing too extreme. And technically, it's actually a little lower than the low back. It should be around your sacrum. You might even feel it a little bit in the outer hips. That's fine. Take a couple more breaths. And then slowly coming up from that. We're going to bend the knees and have the feet flat on the mat. And I'm just going to challenge you to take as much time as possible lying down. Okay, so maybe you're just plunked down, and if that's what happens, that's what happens. But I want you to keep your feet flat and just really try and slowly lower yourself down. So just taking your time, you should feel one part of your back hitting the mat at a time till you're all the way down. And then you can hug your knees in and rock side to side. So our first twist is going to involve a little bit of core strength. I want you to take your legs straight up in the air, completely straight, and flex the feet. Now, if you look at your feet and your legs are straight, your feet are flexed, and the soles of the feet are even. This is very much like when we did side plank, right? I want you to remember that, because here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our arms out to the side like a T, palms facing up. And we're going to kind of jackknife the hips and drop the legs over to the right, trying to get our feet into our right hand. Now, if your legs do like mine like to do, the feet are no longer stacked. If your legs are straight, no cheating, both legs stay straight. You want to try and get your feet perfectly stacked again, just like they were in side plank. What that means is that your left hip is going to have to move over a little more. If you're tighter like I am, your left arm may be off the ground. That's fine. Keep your feet stacked. Take a couple of breaths. And then here's where that little bit of core comes in. I'd like you to keep your legs straight and together. And on an inhale, you're going to bring them back up. Ta-da! Good. Look at them again. Flex the feet. See how they're perfectly stacked with both legs straight? This is how we want to end up, even if it comes after an adjustment. So here we go. You're going to drop both legs over into your left hand. Legs should be straight. Let that right hip slide over on top of the left so that both legs are straight and your feet are stacked. Couple of breaths. And then on an inhale, we're going to bring the legs back up together, hug them in, and rock side to side. So we're going to do one more twist that's truly about the actual spinal twist. If you know that your back needs to modify a little bit, you'll just have both knees bent. You'll bring them up into the air and you'll drop them to the right. For those of you that can go a little deeper, you're going to take your left thigh tightly on top of the right thigh. Right foot's still on the ground. So real tight crossing of the legs. And if you can do the little foot wrap with your left foot behind the right calf, you can do that. That'll make it deeper, but you don't have to. Then we drop both knees to the right and the left arm opens out to the left. So either both knees just bent, dropping to the right, or left thigh on top of right, both knees dropping to the right. It's a deep twist. And in this position, we want to start to relax. Our core has been working really hard for most of this practice. We want it to get a little bit of love now. So some of the muscles are lengthening. Some of them are contracting, but none of it is under pressure or under load because we're lying down. So that means it's a much more relaxed movement. Take a few deep breaths here and then we'll do the other side. On your next inhale, go ahead and bring the knees back up. Uncross them if they were crossed. Just give both knees a nice squeeze. If you'd like to rock side to side, by all means do so. And so if you're modifying, you'll just keep both knees bent and drop them over to the left with your right arm opening out. If you're doing the deeper version, your left foot goes on the mat. Your right thigh very tightly crosses the left. And you want to keep the knees bent and you want to keep the left foot in the middle of the mat. Right arm opens out to the right and the knees drop to the left. And so again, whichever version you're doing is fine as long as you can relax into the pose. We want our core to have the opportunity to soften a little bit now. On your next inhale, bring the knees back up. If they were crossed, uncross them. Hug them in. Rock side to side. And then just keep your right knee hugged into your chest. Extend your left leg all the way out onto the ground. Give that right knee a nice big squeeze. Bring the left knee up, hug it in, extend your right leg out onto the ground. And then bring the right knee back up. You can reach down, grab the outside edges of your feet, and take a few breaths in Happy Baby. So we didn't really emphasize much with the hips. They worked a little bit here and there, but you might want to just wiggle around in case there's anything in the hips, hamstrings, back, glutes that you might want to release. Take a few breaths. And then when you feel like you're ready, soles of the feet are going to come together. The knees are going to drop open to either side. And just pause here for a moment, noticing how your body feels. In this position, just a reclined bound angle, there's a small arch in the back, but it's a natural arch. So you shouldn't feel any strain in your core. Still, we're going to lengthen the low back one more time before we move into Shavasana. So on your next inhale, just press the low back into the mat. You're tilting your pelvis back, letting the low back lengthen. And then on your next out breath, you relax. And that little bit of a natural arch returns to the spine. One more time, inhale. Flatten your low back, press it into the mat, and then as you exhale, release and begin to extend your legs and find your way into Shavasana. And so like so many other poses, we can get really habituated and always put the feet at exactly the same distance and always do exactly the same thing without actually tuning into our bodies. But this is an exceptionally important pose. So make sure that the feet are where they want to be today, that your arms are at the angle that feels best for you today, that the spine is lengthened, everything is relaxed, the jaw is soft, the eyes are closed. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth, letting your body completely let go. Feel your muscles softening down towards the earth. As they get completely relaxed, it might even feel like they're spreading out slightly, which is a really good thing. We want them to be slack. Feel your joints and your bones just kind of settling. Feel your internal organs also just settling in the thoracic and abdominal cavity. Even feel your brain just gently settling in the cranium. After using effort like we did in today's practice, notice how sweet it is to relax and surrender. Notice how great it feels to not do anything, but to simply be. No expectations, no responsibilities, no obligations, no needs or desires in this current moment, other than to simply lie here and breathe. To just be. No doing, only being. If you find that your mind starts wandering off and getting busy with thoughts, notice that those thoughts are relatively unimportant and that you can think them when your Shavasana is over and let them go. Forgive yourself for letting the mind wander and simply come back to just being. And then begin to feel into your entire body. Just feel your whole body. Notice how it feels. Start to move your fingers and toes a little bit. Start to deepen your breath. Breathe in deeper and extend the fingers and spread the toes. Exhale through the mouth and relax them. Inhale deeper still and stretch. Stretch like when you wake up in the morning, that yummy kind of stretching, and then exhale and relax. Bend your knees. If you like, you can hug them in. And then simply roll to your right and pause there for a moment. And press yourself up into sitting. So as you come to your seated position, come back into that really nice spinal alignment and notice if maybe it's a little bit easier to sit with that straight aligned spine and your core is so turned on at the moment. And in fact, that's what I'd like you to just pause for a moment and notice. So notice if you're more alert, more aware, and perhaps feeling more alive. That's what a lot of core work will do for us, is just simply make us feel more alive. So if that's the case, fantastic. You might also feel warmer, as I've mentioned before. If you noticed that your stomach was gurgling a lot during Shavasana, also a good sign. All of this stuff that we do in our midsection has really positive effects on our internal processes as well as our musculature. So just know you did a lot of good stuff for your body today. So for our breath work, because we've done all of this energizing stuff, we're going to do a relaxing breath. We're going to work with 3 parts of the breath. You already did some external retention when you did Uddiyana Bandha, that flying up block. So we're not going to hold the breath out, but we are going to hold it in a little bit if that feels okay to you. And I'm actually going to challenge you today, if it feels okay in your body, to do this as a 1-2-2 ratio. That's more challenging because whatever you inhale, I want you to hold your breath for double that, and then exhale for double the inhale. So in other words, if I breathed in for a 3 count, I would hold my breath for a 6 count and then breathe out for a 6 count. Now, if you try this and it makes you stressed or anxious or uncomfortable, skip it. You just do the inhale and the exhale. You don't have to do the hold. But if you're game for it, you might be surprised that after this kind of a practice, you'll have the fortitude to do that kind of a ratio. So it's a 1-2-2 ratio. Whatever your inhale is, your hold and your exhale will be twice as long. All right, and this is all through the nose while maintaining that beautiful straight spine. So take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale completely through your nose. And begin your 1-2-2 ratio breathing. As you finish out the breath that you're on, just let your breathing return to normal and take this opportunity to just sit in stillness and silence for a moment, noticing your body, noticing any thought patterns, noticing any emotions, noticing your energy, noticing your sense of being connected to your body, to your breath, to the world around you. And slowly bring your palms together in front of your heart. As always, we take a moment in gratitude. Gratitude for our health. Gratitude for our ability to practice. We must never ever take that for granted. It is truly a privilege to be able to practice yoga, to do what we do, to be able to work on ourselves, to spend time with ourselves, to dig a little deeper into all of our processes, not only the physical ones, but also the mental, emotional, and spiritual ones. Gratitude for the breath that we're breathing. Gratitude for our lives. Take one more huge inhale through the nose. Big sigh. Palms to the forehead, reminding us to be present. Palms to the lips, reminding us to speak our truth. Palms to the heart, reminding us to keep our hearts open, to always, always be kind and compassionate and loving, including towards ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm always grateful to have you here. Namaste.